Welcome to another episode of Smiling Again. And I'm very grateful today because I have here with me is Chris. And
Hi,
Chris, hello, Chris. And Chris, you are in Wisconsin in the USA.
yes, a little town in northern Wisconsin, and so I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm grateful that you are here with us today. Just to give our listeners a little bit of an understanding, Chris lost her daughter Aley to alcoholism when Aley was only 28. And that's only been 2 years ago, which for someone who's experienced loss to addiction, that's not very long ago. And I think it's very brave and courageous of you to be with us here today.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you.
And you have another daughter, Courtney, who is 31.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Chris, if you could just tell us your story.
Well, it's just been an incredible loss, an absolutely incredible loss. But as I'm going through it, I'm finding my purpose again. And much of my hope and purpose comes from the love that I shared with my daughter, Aley. And I believe that our spirits go on, our souls, and that's something that can never be taken from us. So I was fortunate enough to find your group, Blossom, and I think it's just a great place to start with sharing our thoughts about how we're getting through this process and finding hope again. Aley was so young, and her drinking started back in high school. And as her story unfolds, she was never one. She had gone to several different rehabs, and I had an intervention specialist come, someone we saw in Larry King Live. And if that effort and money could have saved her, then it would have. But it is such a terrible disease. And Aley could never admit that there was an issue. And, in my experience, rehabs and some of the programs were, they kept her alive for the moment. But in the place where her mind was, she couldn't get out of that addiction. And it eventually took her life. And just going through that, our family, I had divorced, and after 23 years, and there were all sorts of things that contributed to just, I'm sure there's many things that contribute to that, and a family history of alcoholism. I think there's so much that we don't know yet about alcoholism and heredity and all that. But at any rate, even though I could see the physical changes in her, and where that life, it was so sad where it was leading her with domestic abuse, doctors telling me that, she would only have years to live. It literally was eating her alive. And it eventually took her life. But you know, she was just such a light, such a bright light. And despite all that, it's like, you have to separate the addict from the soul and the person that you love. And for the most part, I was able to do that. And Aley and I were very, very close, every day together in some shape or form. And it was so traumatic for me, of course. That was one of the things that hit me, is although we are, as a parent, this is coming, and you try to prepare, but you can never prepare for that loss. And it's devastating.
It is.
Yeah.
I understand the devastation that you're describing. I'm sure we all experience it in different ways. I am so sorry for your loss. It's a tragic loss of life. So when you experience something like that, Chris, how did you find the way to heal? I imagine you're still on a healing journey. But describe to me, when you first lost Aley, what was your life then in terms of what were you feeling? What were you experiencing?
Well, I had Aley was staying with me in our family. We had a lake home that she had spent summer vacations at, for all of her life, basically. And she had said, "Mom, I'm going to come home." And she had said she was coming home to detox. Well, she wasn't. They're very good at hiding things. And but my experience after that, she stayed with me a week, and I'm so thankful for that time. And then prior to that, we had actually gone on a little vacation together. And it's those times that you hold in your heart. But there's, so much to try to squeeze in here. But when she passed, all I can say is that night in the hospital, she had asked me to call an ambulance, and I took her to the hospital. And at that point, her liver was failing. And I had this strong sense of faith, and that whatever was going to happen that night, I was going to accept. I think I can safely say that. And I just a few moments before she passed, Aley pointed to the door. She said, she laughed a little bit, and we were always laughing about something. And she had said, "Mom, I see you out there." And I often think about that now. And with my faith, the ability that I feel, our souls are always connected, and that it was so tragic that night and everything. But not to get overly religious, but there were just signs. The next day, the sky was this brilliant pink. I feel that Aley's always telling me to keep going and to move forward. And whether it's a bird, the morning after she passed, and she wasn't a nature lover, but I am. So again, her sense of humor, this bird was tapping, this woodpecker was tapping at the bathroom window. um, just little things that make you, and that you're going through, you're in shock and you see, this bird. And then I remember later that day after she passed, a butterfly. I was out riding my bike and a butterfly landed right in the middle of the road and came and sat in my hands. For her soul giving me hope that, that our souls go on. So I'm, my mind, I suppose, is in knowing that she's safe as a parent, and that I feel that, our souls go on. How did I deal with, I don't suppose I dealt with it very well. A lot of sleeping and tears, of course, all the grief. And that's why I think Blossom is so wonderful, because I'm hearing you, being a source of, for a resource for people who are going through, something so incredibly devastating. Aley was not only a daughter, she was my heart and soul. And to suddenly have that person gone, we need to be able to reach out. And I feel like much of that, my grief process, was done alone, frankly. And so that's kind of where I'm feeling the push from Aley's soul to do whatever I can to inspire and to reach out to others who've also experienced this loss, whether it's a parent, a husband, a sister. It is devastating. And, but to know that there are other people who've experienced that is so important. And I know I've gone all over the board here, but to describe it in just a few minutes is literally impossible. So
it is impossible.
Yeah.
I love how you talk about yourself and Aley being connected, your hearts and souls being connected.
Absolutely.
And that is beautiful. And to be able to hear her say that you need to keep moving forward is something that I hope others hear you say, because not everyone has that type of a relationship with the loved one that they've lost, and they've not necessarily had the gift of that connection and those conversations and those knowings. So to be able to hear that is, I think, such a gift and such a blessing. And I thank you so much for saying that, because we know all of our loved ones want us to move forward. All of our loved ones want us to live a full and happy life. They don't want us to grieve and to be stuck. So anyone listening, they want you to move forward. They want you to live.
Yes. And the last thing that she said to me before she passed was, I see you out there. And I just keep that in my heart, because I feel like our souls are forevermore connected. And she does see me. And now the hard part is to see our loved ones, with our hearts, and to feel them that way. So yeah, there's so much to it, and so much to learn and so much to share. And I thank you for allowing me to share just a little bit of my story about Aley.
Oh, thank you, Chris. So help us understand, what are some of the things that you're doing in your day-to-day life that you feel are part of finding ways to move on without Aley there in your life?
Yes. Sometimes, like I said, it's so difficult. If you're just to get up, brush your teeth, get moving. I sold my business. But always, for me, it was faith-based, and just, trying to find my purpose through this, and having having faith that I can get through it, and finding other parents that have experienced similar loss. And we all experience grief in different ways. Also, just simply getting moving, and getting out there and walking and exercising and taking good care of ourselves. Simple things, resources. I found books about, positive thinking, Louise Hayes, and You Can Heal Your Life, things like that. I just clung to them, and my faith that our souls go on. I would have to say it's in process. It's there's not one, there's not one thing that I did. It's many different things, and I am fortunate that I, had the experiences and could spend that time with Aley, understanding that other people who go through this loss might have a sudden tragic loss, or I did have the time to be with her, and so just taking, I think, self-care is one of the most important things, to try to find those little moments of joy. For me, it might be nature, or and building myself up, and that's kind of where I'm at now. It's little steps each day to move forward, and certainly finding people such as yourself who have experienced this in a different way, but yet the same. So
wonderful. And the self-care that you're describing, are these things that you did before you had this tragedy in your life, or is it something that you've started to take better care of yourself since the loss?
I would think, yes, I always kind of was an avid, I ran and did things like that, but the positive thinking, and the, trying to lift myself up with my positive affirmations and thoughts, and what I was reading is something new, and has been so beneficial to me, just having a different outlook. And I think that's something that certainly is another topic of what happens to us when we live with or involved with someone who's in active addiction, and what that does, how sick it truly makes our families. And so it is a big process of healing, even from that. So just trying to find a normal.
Yes.
So yeah.
You mentioned the positive thinking, and I think that's a wonderful topic for exploring, because I personally found that, and I know others that I've spoken to have experienced that, when you love someone who is an addict, so much of your focus becomes looking for the next drama, or how to cope with the next trauma. And you get so focused on looking for the problems that I feel like we need to rewire our brains to be more, to know how to look for the joy, to know how to look for the positivity, to look
Look for the
ahead,
joy. Yeah.
look ahead as well. Just absolutely.
And to look ahead, Kim, that is something I remember feeling right after she passed, that I couldn't find joy, because there didn't seem to be a purpose without my soulmate, without, Aley and I were going to go into business and start a spa together. And we really had such a strong spiritual connection. And there didn't seem to be purpose. That was the thing that hurt so much. And also that feeling that this person really knew you and really understood you and loved you. And then there was that, when you've lost that connection, it's hard. I had to find that's why each experience is unique, of course. But for me, I had to find my purpose. As I'm trying to, my own reasons, my own, so much of living with the addict, you get, you're always trying to fix them, and now I see, you kind of invest in their lives, and now it's putting that back into, it's still going into them, but in a positive way through the things that, we're learning about putting our own lives back together in a healthy way. So there's so much to it.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking earlier and we touched on the importance of self-compassion and self-love. So what has been your experience with your growing awareness around self-compassion and the things that you're doing for yourself?
Yeah. It's just, it's every day, and it could be the smallest thing. Just being able to look in the mirror, and say, I love you, Chris. And believing it, that we can learn to take care of ourselves, despite, such horrific loss. We can rebuild our lives, just learning how resilient we truly are. So I would say, having a faith in, faith in something bigger, and also just, allows me to have that faith that I can get the tools and put this back together, put a life back together after such incredible loss, and that we are here to, learn and on our life journey. And what can we learn from all this grief? And how do we find that purpose again? It's ongoing, it's a daily ongoing journey. And that's why I think this program is just, it's wonderful. The outreach to help people, find their purpose and have the tools to move forward, and that we don't have to do it alone. I feel like, unfortunately, I spent 3 months or more in bed by myself, with my little dog, trying to piece this back together. And I can smile now, but those were some really dark, lonely days. And I'm sure as well. And you feel alone. Certainly, how are you going to move forward from this? It can feel, completely paralyzing at times as well. So it's so important to have the resources.
Absolutely. And there was a book that I started reading a few years ago, and it was just after my husband passed, and it was a book called The Woman Who Went to Bed for a Year.
Oh. I need to read this.
I didn't finish reading it, but it was just somebody who understands how I feel. It was one of those
Yes.
moments where you just want to crawl into bed, lock the door, and not have to say anything to anyone or do anything, just so you can just be still and
Yes.
take time to recover. So yeah,
That right there, taking the time, being able to take the time to recover. I was fortunate that I didn't have a job to go to, I suppose. I'm selling my business, but I really feel, a whole nother subject is families that are going through this with young children. You know, um, there's just so many. If we are able to care for ourselves in some small ways every day, and I had the luxury. That's a weird word to use in such a horrific time. Um, of doing it being able to take that time. So I feel for people who are doing it alone, and I think this is a wonderful resource here to reach out and let people know they aren't alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the driver behind setting up Blossom, setting up this podcast, is to reach out to everybody. But for myself, I was a solo parent of 2 small children, and when you experience something like this, there's an awful lot of things that fall onto you, but you have to keep going, because you have for me, I had 2 small people who needed me to keep going, who needed me to be a role model.
Yes.
So much of, what I am doing is led to help as many as I can, so they don't feel that pain that I felt when we lost.
It's terrifying. Yeah.
Yes. Now, as you mentioned families, one last question for you about your story and your daughter, Courtney. How were you feeling about your daughter, Courtney, when all of this was happening?
Courtney has her own story, with Aley, what that was like, the ups and downs, them being so close at certain periods of their life, and then sort of being estranged more towards the end. And different personalities there. The 2 girls were kind of night and day. And my not wanting to, another reason I feel the Blossom is so important is, in my family, I didn't want to, what if you don't have anyone to share those feelings with? Because I didn't want to lay more on my older daughter than she'd already gone through already, having a sister in addiction. And, the family trips, things that weren't so happy, the memories that Courtney has of all that can be the life with an alcoholic in active addiction. So now watching her also try to rebuild, and she has such a love for her sister, but Courtney trying to rebuild her life after the loss of a sibling. How do I, I try to respect that. I try to respect what they had together. And, but that's another interesting topic of how sometimes you need to reach beyond your family because it's just too close. It's too close to home. And we sometimes can't maybe help each other as much as someone on the outside could benefit, if that makes sense.
Wholeheartedly, it makes sense. I understand completely. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
every time I interview somebody, I always ask them to share a happy memory that you have with Aley.
Oh my goodness. There's so many, but immediately what comes to mind is um, the night she was born, I just holding her in my arms and feeling this sense of that I was holding this bright light. She just, she always made people smile. And she just, from the moment I met her, she just lit up the room and she touched my soul. And, you know, watching her grow up, she was strong and feisty. And it's interesting because I never would have thought alcoholism could have, led her astray from, she always seemed to have such purpose in her life, and was a little tomboy, even though she was, completely, I think, completely gorgeous and this beautiful young woman she grew into. But she made you laugh, and her sense of humor. And so there's way too many good memories, but just knowing that this little person, I could see it from the night she was born, that she just was a bright light in the world. And she continues to be, to shine for me, to keep me going as a parent. And, she continues to inspire, I guess I'm saying. She just is in here, and she continues to inspire. So
that's wonderful. I think it's so important to hold on to those happy memories and to remember the happy memories. Because
right.
for some people it's the other memories, the difficult times, that seem to be at the forefront. So it's all about,
Yes.
how.
And I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes there's such a difference, whether because I'm a parent, so losing a child versus losing a husband, or I was the nurturer, I felt like. And there's all different aspects to that, as well, as far as where you're a husband, where you're partnered with somebody, and it's just all different. All the loss is, it's the same and yet different. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
One last thing for you. I like to always end on gratitude. I think having gratitude in our hearts is so important for building that positive mindset and outlook on life. What's something that you're grateful for?
Well, straight away, what comes to mind is I'm so grateful. It was such an honor to have Aley in my life, and in this lifetime. And just, I'm grateful to have known her. And also, I think the biggest piece for me is knowing that alcoholism didn't take her. It took her life, her physical body, but that her soul goes on, and it lives inside of me, and it continues. So I guess that is my main thing. I know that her heart goes on and her soul goes on, and she continues to inspire me and help me move along in this life too, and hopefully can share that with others, and that hope.
Thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome.
There's so many things that you've said, and I tried to take some notes so I could summarize a few things. I mean, faith, how important your faith has been in helping you to move forward. The importance of reaching out to others,
Right.
and the importance of just putting life back together and learning through the grief. I think that's a really important thing that you said, that I'm feeling through everything, is learning through the grief and continuing to take those little steps.
Finding our own strength. Yeah. Finding our own strength. Possibly that's the biggest lesson here, is that we find out who we really are and how strong we really are through these things. And what a lesson, if my daughter could teach me that, to have faith in myself and to be able to move forward through, what we perceive as the worst happening. What a gift that was. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well,
Thank you, Kim.
well shared. Thank you for sharing that. So for those who are listening, I wanted to mention that there is the Blossom community on Facebook, which Chris has mentioned a couple of times in our conversation. And for anyone who is listening and who is looking for a place to reach out, we are there for you. So if you just look on Facebook for Blossom Together, you will find us. And we'll be back again next week with another episode of Smiling Again. Thank you for joining us. And if there's something that you take away from this, is I think learning from the grief and seeing who you can become after experiencing such a tragic loss. One step at a time, you might start smiling again.